Welcome back to Harmonized Spirits. I am Christopher, Wolfing Spirit. In our first 4 transmissions, we mapped the multidimensional architecture of the cosmos. We looked at the upper, lower, and middle worlds, and we established the necessity of becoming a sovereign master of your own energetic field. Today, we are turning our lens inward. We're going to look at a topic that most spiritual teachers completely avoid because it threatens their own platforms. We are talking about shadows in the lineages. There is a dangerous illusion running rampant in the modern wellness world. People assume that just because a teaching is spiritual, ancient, or high vibrational, it is automatically pure. They assume that if someone holds a title like master or shaman, their ego has been completely dissolved. But true masters know the exact opposite is true. The brighter the light you carry, the darker the shadow you cast if that light is not integrated. Sacred lineages, whether they flow from the ancient temples of Egypt, their traditional tribal lineages of the earth, or even the modern systems of Reiki, are handled by humans. And wherever humans are involved, the shadow is present. Today, we are stripping away the sanitized, commercialized version of spirituality. We are going to look at how lineages become distorted, the trap of spiritual bypassing, the danger of the false light matrix, and how a sovereign architect learns to spot energetic corruption within the very systems designed to heal us. Let's define the primary shadow running through modern energy work. It is the false light matrix. The false light is an energetic frequency that mimics high vibrational purity, but it lacks an organic earth connection. It is the realm of toxic positivity, spiritual perfectionism, and aesthetic enlightenment. It is the teacher who tells you to just vibrate higher when you are processing deep ancestral trauma. It is the system that tells you to focus exclusively on love and light while completely ignoring the rot in your subconscious root system. In our lineage, we call this spiritual bypassing. When a practitioner uses high-frequency tools like Reiki, symbols, purely to escape their human pain, their financial chaos, or their emotional wounding, they are not ascending. They are only running away. They are using the celestial light as a drug to numb themselves to the reality of the earth. And here is the mechanical danger of that bypass. The shadow you refuse to look at does not disappear. It simply goes underground. It mutates into spiritual ego, passive aggression, a need for control, and a desperate craving for validation. When a lineage is passed down by a teacher who is bypassing their own shadow, that distortion is baked right into the attunement they give you. The student doesn't just receive the symbols. They inherit the teacher's unintegrated ghost. I know the seductive trap of the false light matrix intimately because I lived it. Years ago, walking this path under my birth name, Christopher McCombs, I did exactly what the mainstream spiritual world tells you to do. I climbed the traditional ladders. I sought out the high vibrational lineages, sat through the silent meditations, mastered the traditional symbols, and accumulated the titles. On paper, I reached the pinnacle. I was initiated into the highest degrees of Reiki. I could hold the celestial voltage, channel the pure light of the upper realms, and facilitate states of absolute bliss for the people on my table. But the higher I climbed into that ungrounded, sanitized light, the more I felt an undeniable friction in my soul. I looked around at the master-level communities I was a part of, and I saw a quiet, devastating rot that no one wanted to admit. I saw practitioners holding high vibrational certificates whose physical lives were in absolute chaos. I saw teachers channeling angels on the weekend, but drowning in unintegrated shadow, emotional manipulation, and financial scarcity during the week. The mainstream system was mass-producing masters who were completely detached from the earth. We were being taught to use the light as an escape mechanism, a beautiful spiritual anesthesia to bypass our human density. I realized that the traditional sanitized Reiki I had been handed was operating with a glass ceiling. It wanted the stars, but it was terrified of the dirt. It wanted the divinity, but it refused the shadow. And then my own system forced a reckoning. The high vibrational tools alone could no longer hold the weight of my evolution. I hit a wall where pouring more love and light into my field felt like throwing water at a stone. My soul was starving for substance, for grit, for absolute grounding. I had to make a choice. I had to choose between the safe, comfortable illusion of the sanitized titles I had earned as Christopher McCombs, or have the courage to smash the glass ceiling and drop down into the deep primal truth of the earth. I chose the descent. I stepped away from the sanitized echo chambers and plunged into the raw, animistic furnace of the shaman. I sat with the rattle and the drum in the pitch black until the illusions of the spiritual ego were entirely incinerated. I forced myself to track energy through the heavy, subconscious, lower worlds and look my own shadows dead in the eye. That was the alchemical fire where my true shamanic lineage name, Christopher Wolfing Spirit, was forged. I didn't lose my Reiki roots in that darkness. I redeemed them. When I brought the flawless, structured geometry of the universal life force down into the primal, untamed power of the shamanic earth, the false light shattered, and the true sovereign architect came online. I realized that real mastery isn't about being too pure for the world. It's about being whole enough to command the elements of both realms. And that is why I look at the distortions in the spiritual community today not with anger, but with the cold clarity of someone who broke out of the cage. How does a sacred lineage become distorted? It happens through the codependency of power. In traditional energy lineages, a hierarchy was often established to maintain safety and order. But when the shadow takes over, that hierarchy becomes an instrument of extraction. Teachers build guru dynamics where the student is taught that their access to the divine depends entirely on the master. They are told that they cannot trust their own intuition, that they are not sovereign, and that they must continually give their power away to remain in the lineage. This happens in shamanism also. So when practitioners use the raw power of the earth and the astral realms to manipulate others, feed their sexual ego, or build an aura of mysterious superiority. It happens in Reiki when the system is turned into a corporate checklist, mass-producing certifications in a single weekend without any somatic integration, nervous system calibration, or even ethical accountability. When you strip away the sacred geometry, you find that these systems are being run on the old parasitic codes of the middle world. They are extracting energy from the students to feed the tower of the teacher. As a Most High Grand Master, I am here to tell you that any system that makes you dependent on the teacher rather than anchoring you in your own internal authority is considered a corrupted lineage. A true master does not create followers. A true master activates sovereigns. Let me walk you through what it looks like to actively dismantle and clear a lineage distortion within your own energetic body. Now imagine a practitioner who has spent years training under a highly charismatic yet deeply unintegrated spiritual teacher. On the surface, they learn powerful tools, but underneath, they feel a constant sense of anxiety, a loss of personal identity, and an invisible weight pressing down on their crown chakra. They have unconsciously signed an energetic contract of subservience to that teacher's lineage's tower. We open the sacred space. We anchor heavily into the earth seed, ignite the solar pillar, and bring down the pristine, original blueprint of the universal life force. We don't use the teacher's version of the symbols. We tap back into the source code of the geometry itself. So I pick up the drum, setting a slow, rhythmic, shattering beat that disrupts the artificial static in their field. Using shamanic sight, we look at the client's crown and solar plexus. There we possibly see it, an artificial energetic grid, a web of silver and gray cords anchoring them directly into the teacher's ego matrix. This grid is constantly siphoning their unique medicine, forcing them to mimic the teacher instead of birthing their own lineage name. We do not attack. We do not react with anger. Anger is a middle world frequency that only feeds the distortion. Instead, we step forward with the absolute cold authority of a sovereign architect. We use the highest degree Reiki symbols as a surgical blade, slicing through the artificial grid at the precise points of connection. As the cords sever, we don't just leave them dangling. We use the primal fire of the lower worlds to completely incinerate the residual hooks, burning away the old psychic contracts, the vows of obedience, and the inherited trauma. We blow the original uncorrupted breath of life into their crown. The client takes a massive, full body breath. Their spine straightens. Their true shamanic frequency, their raw, uncompromised medicine finally floods their nervous system. They are no longer a copy of a master. They are the master of their own column. So let's bring this into your current reality with a diagnostic checklist. Look honestly at your spiritual history, your current teachers, or even your own practice, and see if any of these three lineages, shadows, are active. The first shadow is lineage codependency. If you feel terrified to question your spiritual teacher, or if you feel that leaving a specific community or changing your practice will result in a loss of your spiritual gifts or protection, you are in a captive contract. That is a cult dynamic, not a lineage. The second shadow is the perfectionism burnout. If your practice makes you feel deeply ashamed of your human emotions, if you feel like a failure because you get angry, sad, or financially stressed, you are trapped in the false light matrix. You are trying to be an angel instead of a fully embodied human. The third shadow is impotent mastery. This is when you have a wall full of certificates and master-level titles, but you cannot manifest stability in your physical life. You cannot pay your rent comfortably, your relationships are chaotic, and your body is constantly sick. Your titles are high vibrational, but your roots are starved. If you recognize any of these shadows, do not hide from them. The moment you look at the distortion, the spell is broken. You are ready to claim your original inheritance. As we close this fifth transmission, I leave you with this final, sovereign contemplation. Whose light are you running on? Are you carrying the unintegrated shadows of the systems you walked through, or are you ready to burn away the distortions and stand in the pure, uncompromised power of your own medicine? True mastery requires the courage to look into the dark of the lineage to find the gold. If you are ready to break free from the false light matrix, dismantle the guru dynamics, and learn the advanced, flawless architecture of the hybrid path, your seat is ready. The doors to our Reiki Shamanism initiation open this August. We do not offer cheap titles or weekend shortcuts. We offer an alchemical furnace where your sovereign power is forged, cleared, and weaponized for your highest density. Click the link in the show notes below and step inside the Harmonized Spirits community today. I am Christopher Wolfing Spirit. Thank you for having the courage to look into the shadow of the temple with me today. Until next time, stand in your sovereignty.